All right, guys, I'm gonna take y'all through the after treatment system real quick. Uh, first they decided to put an EGR on systems, and the EGR, what that does, that takes the unused fuel that's burned out of the exhaust system, and it sends it through a cooler. Whoa, where's my finger? So it sends it through a cooler, cools it down with coolant from 300 to 600 degrees. Comes through the cooler, you got your EGR valve. This valve here opens and closes depending on the temperature of the engine, what it's running at, and also what's being put out of the engine, which would be your nitrous oxide. So it'll recirculate more. If you have excessive fuel coming back through your turbo, it'll recirculate more EGR gases. So after it's recirculated, then you got your variable geometry turbo that they added. Now this turbo here it's kind of not necessarily wastegated at all. What it is it's got a vein in there to where that it can cause, or basically have more back pressure on the engine. They first started using these for Jake brakes or engine brakes on like the ISBs, and they did that because they could nozzle down the turbo and they could put more strain on the engine, or you could have full flow exhaust, which would spool up the intake side, spool up the exhaust side. So they used to have what was called a seventh injector right here. Now the seventh injector would inject diesel into the exhaust stream, raw diesel, and it would basically react with the face of the DOC. Now they got away with this by the new injectors that they use. These new injectors are strictly electronic injectors, and they can fire. So your typical old mechanical engine that is controlled by rockers. So whenever the cam lobe comes around, it tells the injector to fire. Whenever that cam lobe comes up, it pushes the plunger down and fires the injector each time. Well, they went to electronic injectors, and instead of one fire per rotation, now they can get up to, I think it's like 160, 170. I'll have to double check that. But 160 to 170 fires per rotation. So on an exhaust stroke, they can actually inject raw diesel into the exhaust stream, put it through the turbo, which got rid of the seventh injector. So from there, we have our DOC, which is this module right here, this catalyst, this lower one, this section. Now your DOC has a face. It's either platinum or palladium. I don't fucking know which one. But that raw diesel hits the face of that and it heats up. So inlet temp usually is about 650 degrees. And then you've got your DPF filter right here. Your DPF filter, again, has a platinum or palladium face, which reacts with all the particulates, the raw diesel, everything that's coming through the DOC hits the faceplate of this DPF filter. Now, whenever it hits there, it's going to ramp that temperature up to roughly 1,000 degrees. Inlet and outlet, usually about 50 degree difference. Now this is called your reactor tube. It used to be called a decomposition tube. They got rid of that name. I don't know why, but they call it a reactor tube now. So what the reactor tube does is this is your DEF injector. So this is going to inject DEF into your exhaust stream before your SCR. So you can see the way that this is shaped, it actually basically makes it into like a little tornado or a cyclone inside. So whenever it hits the face of your SCR, you get even full coverage of your SCR. Now this temperature is traditionally going to be less than your DPF just because the DEF fluid cools it down a little bit. The temperature coming out of your exhaust, I mean, that's going to range anywhere from say 850 degrees up to 1,000, I would say. Every once in a while, if it's doing an SCR burn off, it'll get up to 2,000 degrees. You've also got your temperature module. So this temp module is going to measure the temperature of the gas coming into the DOC down there at the bottom, the temperature coming into the DPF filter, the temperature coming out of the DPF filter, and the temperature coming out of the SCR. So you're going to have 3 ports on this outlet. One is for temp, one is for NOx sensor, and then this top one is for your particulate matter sensor. These other two ports that are on your DPF filter are going to be for your DPF differential pressure sensor. And what these tell the engine is how clogged the DPF filter is, if it's clogged. So it'll tell you your ash accumulation. It will also tell you your soot accumulation, which are two different things. So soot is what's created whenever it's driving down the road. Everything that comes out of your DOC and goes into your DPF is going to be soot. That's usually going to be on startups and when you're parked, when you're driving down the road and it's not doing a regen. Whenever it starts doing a regen, it turns that soot into ash. And then you get an ash accumulation. They start to build up, and that's why you have to have your DPS baked, is because of the ash accumulation. So that's a quick rundown of your after treatment system. Now on to the new one. We have our SCR, we have our DPF. We do not have a DOC, but we do have a decomp tube, which we not necessarily need, but we have it, so we're going to use it. Now, this SCR is actually damaged. I tried to bend it back. I don't know if you can really see, but right here, this whole flange was bent back. I got it bent back this way, but now it's got a flat spot right there. And I cannot get that flat spot to bead out without damaging the face of the SCR. So we're trying to find a new SCR, and we're trying to find a new DOC filter over there. Once we get those two, we can assemble the after treatment system, and I actually need the DOC to assemble the entire unit, or before I can assemble the entire unit, because this is the base of it. No, this unit does not stand up. It does lay on its side, but if you look at the way that these are grooved, so these have a lip on them, and the lip slides inside here. And what that does is that will basically line everything up so that you don't get anything out of alignment. It doesn't get twisted or cockeyed. But this is also pretty cool. This is how they deleted it. They basically just drilled holes in the SCR. Now I haven't pulled this apart to see if they did the same thing on the DOC, the DPF. More than likely they did, but that's no big deal. It is what it is. But we got our clamps and gaskets. We got all new sensors, your PM sensor, which is this one here, your NOx sensor, which is that one there, your differential pressure sensor, and your temperature sensors. So we've got all new sensors. We've even got a new def injector that mounts to your decomp tube. So that's a quick rundown of what all we have left to do here. There's nothing more that I can do except for the clutch on this, which I need to leave something for tomorrow, because if I don't leave that for tomorrow, I pretty much have the day off. And everything has been swapped over from this engine to this engine. The transmission's been relocated to the new engine. The motor mounting brackets have been relocated. All the fittings, everything that's needed to make this engine fit in there and mount up is on this one. So the only thing I have left to do on the chassis is to pull the old engine mounts off, which is pretty easy. Got these two bolts. I don't know if you can see these two, this one, and that one. And the inside mount comes off. Same thing with the other side right there. We got 4 bolts, one on each corner, and that will come off. These are the slide brackets that go inside of it. But that's all we got to do for tomorrow so far. The new one, I have new bushings for the front. There's 2 bushings that go there. I don't know if you can see them. One there, one there. But that's all I got to do for tomorrow is pull those off, do the clutch, and the new motor mounts are being delivered here tomorrow. So yeah, it's been a good productive day, except for the fact that we don't have a DOC filter and our SCR is damaged. But I'm gonna get some part numbers off of these, send them off to my parts guy, and see if we can locate hopefully these things locally here, and I can go pick them up tomorrow, get this assembled, and get my ass home. I'm ready to be home. I miss my wife, I miss my kids. I'm ready to be home already. So y'all have a good one. I'm gonna go ahead and put this video up on the tube, and if y'all have any questions about any of this shit, I can leave them down below. This is what I do for a living, so if there's any questions I can answer for you, feel free to ask them, guys. Y'all have a good day.